What's up, ladies and gentlemen? That's the wrong screen. That's the right screen. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I've been up to recently, which is being interviewed. So normally we don't talk about this kind of thing on this show. You know, this is a Christian Urban Apologetics program, Street Apologist Live TV. And I'm a Christian Urban Apologist, Vocab Malone. Please subscribe, hit the like button, Patreon, all that stuff, please. It's right there. Well, actually, I haven't put in the description yet, but usually it's right there. And the mods will come in and drop it in. So today's Sunday, November 27th. It's 2022, 8:40 here in Phoenix now, and that's 10:40 out there on the West Coast and 7:40 for you Pacific folks. And this is the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. And in Christian Urban Apologetics, we seek to fulfill 1 Peter 3:15, Colossians 3:4-5, 2 Corinthians 10:3-5, a number of other beautiful passages, right? And we do that in lesser-known areas than a lot of mainstream apologetics, although we touch on those too sometimes. Key issue there is Hebrew Israelism. It's not the only one, but it is the main one on this channel, as most of you know. Shout out to Mr. Phil Fox, Nate 2D2J Fry. Well, every now and then the stuff that we cover hits the headlines. So what we do here is a little bit different. There are channels, and I think it's important they do this. They focus on what is in the headlines, right? And that could be any topic. Really, the topic is the headline. Here we don't do that, but sometimes the stuff we focus on bubbles up to the surface and hits the headlines. So it makes sense we'd focus on it, right? You know? What's up, K-Dub? What's up, PJ? Well, whenever that happens, I don't always get calls and emails, but a lot of times I get calls and emails, right? Things blow up. So it's just how it goes. So when these things happen, you know, there it go. Well, with all the Kanye, Kyrie, etc., stuff that stayed in the headlines for a considerable period now, going on a month or so, I have got some calls. I have got some emails. I don't always talk about every little thing that happens, so, you know, you haven't heard about it unless you're probably a Patreon person. But some of the Hebrew Israelites themselves have taken notice of this now. And so I want to also take notice here. And let me show you what I mean here. We're gonna look at what people have noticed here. And we'll talk about it here. So let's see. We got, yeah, okay, there we got that. Okay. All right. So here's one. I'm gonna show you a couple of things here about so you can see why I'm doing the show tonight. That's the wrong thing here. Hold on. Wait, that's the right thing. Okay, good. Okay, good. All right, so most of you guys will recognize this. This is the guy who goes by Hakah, supposed to be a deacon in the Sakari camp. And he went live earlier today. 10,000 people have watched this thing. And he discussed an issue in which I was, quoted and brought up. And he talks about me a little bit here and there. And I did not hear all of the show, but I was there for some of it, okay? Maybe half of it. I mean, these things are long. But I probably heard about an hour of the 2 hours. Well, this article that he's looking at, the Times of Israel, that's not the original source of it. I'm going to show you the original source of it, and I know because I talked to the author. But my point here is that some of the Hebrew Israelites are noticing. So this program that he did was called Hebrew Israelites in America Make News in Israel. All right, so there's that one. Well, that's one. But also if you do this, you're going to see, looks like two more here. All right. Here's this one. You gotta love this cover, right? Vocab Malone gives the Times of Israel intel on Hebrew Israelites, and Hakah did his after the sergeant did his. So he's kind of derivative there. He does that a lot. He got Vocab as Superman there, coming to rescue people, I guess is the idea. But it looks like GMS was the first one that I saw. Here's Remnant Save 144. And this is a GMS channel, right? Reply, how many Hebrew Israelites are there? Vocab Malone mentioned. So this one is prior to the Sakari ones. I have not been able to hear this one. It's an hour long. I will check it out, though. That's my plan. And he looks at some other stuff here, so I haven't actually watched it all. But there he goes. Okay, so some of the Hebrew Israelites are noticing. So, you know, I do interviews, and I'm on different platforms, and I don't honestly always keep track of stuff very well. But, you know, I have noticed that some people are noticing this. And this article that I was interviewed for has got picked up by a number of sources, and that's how people found this. So let me show you real quick, and then we're gonna actually take a look at the article itself, and I'm gonna give you some behind the scenes stuff. And it's not the only article. There's another article. I wasn't directly contacted for this one, but it's also important and interesting. It just came out as well, and so a lot's going on. Now look, it's not about me, because my prediction is that as Hebrew Israelism grows, I'll sort of be viewed by people within the media as kind of, for lack of a better word, less important. That's my prediction. Now, what do I mean by that? Right now, there's certain things that these guys just simply don't know. And so I'm telling them some basic things about One Westers, because these guys have more familiarity with Demona, and they have more familiarity with things related to kind of Black Judaism. A lot of the media folks who are actually interested in this. So I don't just mean random media that's like, you know, your local guy who just repeats a script. I'm talking about people who are trying to do original journalism, investigative stuff, and kind of, you know, doing their homework when they write something. Those folks don't have a lot of options about places to turn right now. But someone like me is going to be less appealing for them over the long term. I'm a Christian apologist. I'm a conservative. They'll call me an evangelical. I don't mean that politically. I'm reformed. You know, I do stuff that would not be considered, you know, cool to them, you know, or insensitive. You know, I'm not a professional media person in the sense of a reporter or something like that myself. You know, I'm not the head of an institution. Those kinds of things. So people, you know, it's like over time, I think they'll be less and less interested. So it's funny, you know, people are like, oh, the rise of Hebrew Israelism. I actually think what will happen is it'll get more and more crowded, more flooded, and the media will start to have their own sources they will probably want to turn to first before a person like me. So I actually don't think long term I'm going to be in the center of a storm, honestly. I'm telling you what I really think. That's not the whole point of this, right? The point is for Christians to do what we're supposed to do regardless, right? And so I'm really here first and foremost for the church. Shout out to Alton Johnson for the super chat. Thank you very much, brother, for coming through. It's a good brother, man. I liked hanging out with you, and I hope we can hang out again, you know, for real. Shout out to Mr. Green, DFC, K-Dub in the house, and a number of other great people here. I got love for y'all, man. Some great people in this area, in this field. So I'm just telling you what I think, you know, and we'll see if it's true. PJ Williams, shout out to you. Because really being the first or early in something, it only gets you so far, okay? And you don't want to be the guy sitting around, well, I was the first one, you know, be all old, and are you adding anything new to the conversation? I mean, the world is like, hey, what have you done for me lately? Okay, right? You know, Tucker did what he did, you know, wasn't that the guy, the car, the big automakers made sure he didn't succeed? I think it was Tucker. George Lucas made a movie about it, I think. And, you know, we know Henry Ford more so. Shout out to Prime Minister. Speaking of anti-Semitism, no, it's not serious. But I got sidetracked a little bit. Let me show you here this joint where all this places, this thing that I got interviewed for got picked up. Because, you know, you never know how these things are going to go, okay? You never do. Let me make this larger. Yo, shout out to Jay Fry for the super chat. Did I already give you something? If I didn't, man, you can get the air horn. For real, thank you. You keep me going. Okay. The Jerusalem Post picked this up. So I didn't write the article. Okay. Andrew Essenston did. And he did a great job at it. He did a great job in the article. But I was interviewed, and there's places where I believe I must have been his primary source, although he wouldn't really be required to quote me. And there's also places where I gave him leads. He's the one who put the article together, though, and he did a great job. But I am directly quoted as well, okay? So there's a lot going on here. So that's in the Jerusalem Post. It was also picked up by Ynet News. This is in the Jewish scene section of this. And I notice sometimes they don't pick up the whole thing. They just have some of it, at least I think I saw. They didn't have something there, but they had a video that I was watching about Hebrew Israelites at the center earlier, and then they had this wacky guy after that. I don't know what. Anyways, here's Cleveland Jewish News as well. So shout out to the folks in Ohio, despite a traumatic loss to the team from up north the other day. Whew. And here's the one that got the Hebrew Israelites' attention, the Times of Israel. And they've had some good stuff on here before that I've caught before. But if you notice, all of them say JTA. And listen, everybody, just a little something for you so you can know. If you see that, if you see something before it starts, like Reuters, AP, try to find the original source. That's the best way to do it. If it says New York Times reports, it's best to try to go there unless the other source really adds something new to it. Well, here's the original source, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. So here today, you're going to get BTS stuff from the original source of this that is making the rounds, and it is a well-written piece, and it is showing the changing nature of the landscape in the media. You have real media doing real coverage. Look, man, the Jewish Telegraph, the JTA, has been around since 1917. 1917. You can read the Hebrew edition. Do you see? Hey, I wonder if they got the one where I was interviewed in Hebrew. Interesting to look through that. My guess is there's probably less stuff on it. But anyways, okay, so that's that. Well, let's look at this article together. Is everybody here? Give me a one if everything sounds good and looks good there. And I'm seeing you here. Shout out to William Butterfield watching on Facebook. Shout out to Trill Will. And Trill Will, thanks. Sounds like you're getting it right. Shout out to Juicy Kisses 878. The name's kind of hard to say. What's up, Robski? What's up, Black Culture? What's up, Bearded Wayne? Hey, Roberto Tapia. Wepa! Oh, yeah, K-Dub. He's right. Maya Muse. She did reference yours truly. There's someone else recently, too. So some of this stuff is surprising. Yeah, she did a video called Rate My Cult. Rate My Cult. Got to be careful saying the word rate around Hebrew Israelites. They might mistake it for something else. Shout out, Naomi. How you doing? Joy, how you doing? Rachel, hey. What's going on? Myth Vision. Myth Vision. Oh, Myth Vision, how you doing, man? Hit me up. We got to talk. Okay. What's up, Jesus Christ, King, Lord. Okay, let's look at this together now. United States. How many Hebrew Israelites are there? And how worried should Jews be? By Andrew Essenston. November 25th, 2022, 6:16 p.m. Now, I can tell you, Andrew did a great job in this article, and I saw a lot of the behind-the-scenes work that he put in. He took it seriously. He did his homework. He was very humble. I mean, he did good work. Shout out to you, Andrew. I know you didn't write it for me, but I was glad to read this when it came out. You did excellent work here, and it's good because there's a few people who have got it, and then there's a lot of people in the media that don't get it. I'm not acting like I'm the only one who gets it, but my goodness, you read some really blind takes, But this is not one of them, and I'm glad about that because even though this is not some Christian publication, whatever, truth is truth, and we want true information to be out there, okay? We're in this world together till the Lord returns, and that's what's what. Byline, it says, a screenshot from YouTube IUIC events. Members of Israelite Christ see themselves as being part of God's army. And that's literally from their own sources there. Let me make this a little bigger. That's a thing they've been saying more and more, that they're part of God's army. Dressed in matching purple hoodies and shirts with gold fringes attached to the bottom in observance of Deuteronomy 22:12. Although I think it's very debatable about the way their fringes are and how they do it. If you read Deuteronomy 22:12, I need to do a show about this sometime. My take would be the way the Hebrew Israelites do their fringes is actually not the way the Bible is telling you to do it. it's possible that that you could look at it some different ways. And so this is not, an ultimately important point, but I think they got it wrong there. But he's pointing out that they're trying to keep the law. And how many articles do you see that begin with anything mentioning Deuteronomy 22:12, right? Shout out to D. New, hey, and Mater Drummel, and Alejandro, and Big Ant. Who else we got? Just much love. We got great people in here. Hundreds of members of a controversial Hebrew Israelite group marched through the streets of Brooklyn on Sunday. Everything's accurate so far. No lies. I'm just saying, like, people don't like the media writing. Hebrew Israelites don't like the media writing about them. And to be honest, they don't like, especially if they determine the source is a Jewish writer or a Jewish news outlet primarily. But if it's right, it's right. If it's true, it's true. And they did it. This is where's the lies in this, right? Hey, Jacob, it's time to wake up. They chanted, using a term for people of color who have yet to embrace their true identity as descendants of the biblical Jacob, later called Israel. So I believe I'll let Andrew know that slang. Okay. I think that's going to become common knowledge over time, this whole Jake thing. Shout out to Cherry Love. What's going on? Hey, sis. We got good news for you. Jesus died for you. Nope, that's not what it says. It says, we got good news for you. You are the real Jews. Imagine just telling any random crowd, you're the real Jews, as if you know, right? These guys really think they can know by looking at somebody, honestly. Well, you're the real Jews. What is the good news, everybody? What is the good news? What is the good news, right? What is the good news? There's places where the Bible talks about it, more than one, but can I show you one? Now, brothers and sisters, I want to remind you of the gospel. The word gospel means good news. This is 1 Corinthians 15. I preach to you which you received and in which you have taken your stand. By this gospel you are saved if you hold firmly to the word I preached to you. Otherwise you have believed in vain. So this is the thing to believe in. This is what he preached. This is what he's reminding them of. This is the good news. Euangelion in the Greek. For what I received I passed on to you as of first importance. This is the most important thing, not your supposed ethnic identity. Shame on you, IUIC. That Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, and that he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures, and that he appeared to Cephas and then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers and sisters at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles, and last of all, he appeared to me as to one abnormally born. Look what he says in verse 11. Whether then it is I or they, this is what we preach, and this is what you believed. What was the important thing to believe then, and what's the important thing to believe now? The good news, by the biblical definition, is not you're the Jews. It's that Jesus died for you. I mean, isn't it obvious this is not a biblical group? Isn't obvious? I just want to stop there. They're saying we've got the good news. This is the good news for you. Now, I know I'm going off a little bit on the article, but I'm a Christian. I'm an evangelist at heart. I'm an apologist. What do you expect from me, people? You can't blame me. Look at this, Galatians 1. I am astonished that you were so quickly deserting the one who called you to live in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel, a different euangelion, a different good news, which is really no gospel at all, which is really no euangelion, which is really no good news at all. This is really no euangelion at all. Evidently, some people are throwing you into confusion or trying to pervert the euangelion, the good news of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven, or someone in purple and gold, or Nathaniel himself should preach a gospel other than the one we preach to you, let them be under God's curse, anathema. As we have already said, so now I say again, if anybody is preaching to you a gospel, a euangelion, a good news other than what you accepted, let them be anathema under God's curse. Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ. That is Apostle Paul in Galatians chapter 1, starting in verse 6, going down to verse 10. Don't forget about these passages, ladies and gentlemen. And even to the unbelievers. If you're a person of Jewish descent, you've turned in, you're like, oh, what's this? What's this guy doing now? Huh? Hey. I at least want you to see what the New Testament truly does teach. It doesn't teach about who's got the right lineage claim. The good news is that the Messiah of Israel has come, and he's done what was foretold. Isn't that beautiful? That's Evangelion. The march and the demonstration that followed at the Barclays Center were organized by Israel United in Christ in solidarity with Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving, by the way, who just gave $50K to the largest, oldest black Muslim school in New York. It's almost like a way to say, don't worry, guys, I really am anti-Semitic. I'm just saying. Who was suspended for 8 games after he posted a link to an anti-Semitic film, that's Hebrews, Two Negroes by Ron Dalton Jr., which fake quotes Hitler and makes a whole bunch of other errors besides being boring and long, on social media last month, and then was slow to apologize. If you call it an apology, he still says, but I know who I am. But IUIC has also used the controversy to promote its incendiary ideology and recruit new followers into what it calls God's army. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's what they say about themselves. That's what they say about themselves. Again, Sister Cherry, hit me up sometime. Please text me. I got to talk to you again. See what's going on with you, okay? It is good to see you, though. For real. Got much love. Bearded Wayne makes a comment on the fringes. I agree with you, by the way, Prime Minister. Nate, imagine if Oprah became a Hebrew Israelite. You're a Jew, you're a Jew, you're a Jew, everyone's a Jew. Well, not you, right? That's what they'll be like. That's true, that's facts, that's right. Okay. Now, keep on going here. Man, am I getting this distracted this quick? I'm supposed to talk about me being interviewed for these artists. But IUIC is awesome. Hey, that's right, are they really doing this to show Kyrie we stand with you? No, IUIC sees this as a dog and pony show. Really, it's a recruitment drive. The point of their marches are not to protest any particular thing. It's not about Kyrie. It's about a message. And their message points to themselves, and they want you in their thing to do their thing. So these marches by IUIC in solidarity, this is recruiting drives. That's what they are. They are promo walks. Understand. That's what it is. Now, the average member may not think so, right? They think they're doing God's work as God's army. But we know it's PR, baby. After the demonstration, the second held by IUIC outside of the Brooklyn Arena this month, the group's founder posted a message on his Twitter account. That's Nathaniel. We are not here for violence, Bishop Nathaniel Ben Israel wrote. We are here for the spiritual war. They're not here for violence. Ask IUIC, do they think they're going to physically cut people's heads off when Black Messiah comes back? Ask them if they think they themselves will physically kill people when Yahushua returns. Before 2019, those American Jews who were even aware of the once obscure Black Hebrew Israelite spiritual movement, likely associated with the loud but non-violent street preachers who would harangue pedestrians in city centers. Now, shout out to the man known as a sergeant. I watch him, and I'm going to insult him in a way that I don't often insult people, but he is dumb. He is super dumb. Not everyone in Sakari is dumb, and you can be clever and crafty, but still dumb. He's clever and crafty, but still dumb. He's dumb. He read this and was trying to say, shout out to Prime Minister, that we're nonviolent then. Well, it's saying right here we're nonviolent, then what are you worried about? That's not what it was saying. It's saying that people viewed them basically like they did Christian street preachers who may be obnoxious historically, but people didn't see as violent. Saying that there was a confusion there, an association, like, hey, those guys are like those guys. In a lot of people's minds, if they didn't understand too much of what's going on, it's like, oh, they're preaching for their church too, their thing. But it's not, it's almost like the separation between Jews and Christians that happened around 70 AD, the great divide that happened, where the Roman government kind of realized, oh, those Christians aren't just another sect of Jewish folks. This is something different here, right? Kind of like that. It's not actually saying that about Hebrew Israelites. And then let me show you another example of his problems here in reading comprehension in this very next sentence, because I watched his review, and I don't often say that kind of stuff about people, but he does deserve it. In December of that year, however, extremists professing Israelite beliefs attacked a kosher grocery store in Jersey City, New Jersey, and a Hanukkah. Okay, let me stop there. He said, oh, no, that's a lie. You know they were Muslims. What? David Anderson and Francine Graham, who wore their Hebrew Israelite garments during the attack, according to the security footage that I and San Miguel, an ex-ICGJC member, analyzed, and who left a note, and who me and Abu and a number of other brothers and sisters found his social media on various platforms before it was deleted. It was Hebrew Islamism all the way. He was an anti-Semite, sure, like some Muslims, but he was not a Muslim. What is this dude talking about? David Anderson used Lashawan Quadash. Not plus, ICGJC was identified. Now, the officials didn't want to say why, but it was non-tax comfy related in shortly after when they went back to the ICGJC. And the reason is it seems like that's who he flirted with. He wasn't a member at the time. No one ever said he was. That's why even this is written kind of clumsily to be accurate. Because it's read kind of clumsy, but it's accurate. Let me read it again. In December of that year, that's 2019, extremists professing Israelite beliefs. So they're extremists. Notice how he labels them extremists first. Then it says they profess Israelite beliefs. That's a true statement. They did. It's not an accident that they targeted a kosher market. It's not an accident that there was a Jewish school filled with, I believe, children right next to it. And that was their original target. A lot of people haven't read this article. I'm talking about the December 2019 thing. They were trying to go to shoot up the Jewish school, but the door was locked. Praise God it was locked. And only a much smaller amount of people lost their life in this horrendous attack. But you've got a Sakari member on here. Oh, they were a Muslim. What? Where's your evidence for that? I showed the evidence on my live stream I did about David Anderson that he was Hebrew Israelite through and through. I don't know what the sergeant is talking about. Again, frankly, he's dumb. I'm sorry. In a Hanukkah party in Muncie, New York, 2 Jews were killed in Jersey City, and a 72-year-old rabbi was stabbed in the head in Muncie, died from his injuries 3 months later. Shout out to Prophetically Speaking. Thank you. I'm just looking at some of the comments here. Guys, I try, but sometimes it's so hard. Shout out to hold up. What, some of these comments here. Jazzin, what are you saying? I'm not sure what you're saying here. It sounds like you might be a little confused here. I'm not sure what you're saying here. Okay, yeah, Jazzim, you're incorrect. There is no video of the FBI saying they weren't Israelites. The opposite of that is true. Law enforcement identified them as such, but we didn't even necessarily need law enforcement. I just went. Do people know that David Anderson rapped? I got a hold of his raps. It's Hebrew Israelite stuff. And anti-Semitic. With the memory of those attacks still fresh, and against the backdrop of a surge this fall in public expression of anti-Semitism, thank you, Kanye, combined with threats of violence against Jewish communities emanating from other extremist corners, including white supremacists and far-right folks, and even the Antifa folks, apparently, the militant posturing of IUIC has alarmed many Jews already on edge. And I gotta say, you got a right to be so, because like I said in the article, this is in Buddhism. Rabbi Mordecai Leitzel of Crown Heights observed on Twitter that the Israelites who regularly preach near his home on Shabbat have been particularly aggressive of late, he being verbal abuse on both him and his children. I wish I could say that I thought he was lying, but I know he's not, because I've seen the way Hebrew Israelite One West camp members speak to people that they say are Jewish but not Jewish, and even their children. It's horrible. Any religion that makes you act this way or tells you that you shouldn't, or doesn't tell you that you shouldn't act this way, is a religion of the devil. Straight up. On Sunday afternoon, Lightstone posted a video of IUIC members assembling for their march and rehearsing their chants in Grand Army Plaza. I believe that's around Prospect Park in Brooklyn. Terrifying, commented Elisheva Rishon, a black and Jewish fashion designer who blames Hebrewites for inflaming tensions between the two communities to which she belongs. So this is someone who practices black, who practices Judaism, right? A few Twitter users compared the march to the 2017 far-right rally in Charlottesville, at which participants chanted, "Jews will not replace us." Now, again, someone was saying deacon. I was talking about the sergeant earlier. I mentioned deacon, I think, in the very beginning, but when I'm talking about the person who was not understanding some basic things in this article and was wrong, that was the sergeant. The sergeant also didn't know about this. It is the same kind of thing. It's anti-Semitism from different sectors of society. And this whole unite the right thing at Charlottesville, at first I didn't understand it either, so I looked into it. I was like, why are these white guys with tiki torches marching around saying Jews will not replace us? I did not understand what they're saying until I looked into the whole replacement theory, which also drove the dude in Buffalo who drove to the supermarket just to specifically kill black folks. And I had to read his awful, horrible manifesto in PDF format twice. And when I read it, he said his real enemy, the main target, were the Jewish people, but he couldn't get to them. But he could get to their number one pawn. This is the way this guy spoke and thought, I'm paraphrasing here, which are black folks. And so he could kill them because he called them replacers, and he justified the killing of children in the manifesto. He said, if I got to kill them, I got to kill them too, because they're miniature replacers who are going to grow up to be big replacers. And again, I am paraphrasing, but this is what's going on in our society. Ladies and gentlemen, we need the gospel. I don't care, I can be conservative, libertarian, independent, have a hard time envisioning myself ever voting for a Democrat. Doesn't mean I always vote for the other guys per se, but never the D, If I see anti-Semitism with people that may have other things I line up with, I don't care. We're going to call it out. Donald Trump meeting with Nick Fuentes? What is going on? I'm going off a little bit here, but Christians, we got to be against this stuff, man. I hope we have been against segregation, against brown folks, against Asian folks, and yes, historically, especially black folks. I hope Christians of all stripes have been. Better be right now. But that includes folks of Jewish descent. The recent IUIC rallies give the impression that the radical wing of the Hebrew Israelite movement is large and riled up. Meanwhile, recent comments by Kanye West, the rapper who now goes by Ye, and Irving that align with elements of Hebrew Israelite doctrine suggest the movement has broad support among powerful black celebrities. But how big is the movement in reality? What percentage are extremists who sell Jews as imposters who stole their heritage from them? And by the way, that's based on a lot of fallacious stuff, but especially Revelation 2:9. Someone in the live chat, please drop that link. I was on with David Wood last night on his brand new Act 17 channel, and we discuss in depth Revelation 2:9. I brought out the commentaries. We got into the historical background. We got into the context. We showed you that Revelation 2:9 is not what IUIC says it is, and it's definitely not what Bizzle says it is. Both of those are wrong, even though I got love as a brother for one and love as a non-believers for the other, if you know what I'm saying here. But that's wrong. Revelation 2:9. So check that out. Drop that link, somebody. And if black Israelism has entered the marketplace of mainstream religions in the United States, should Jews be concerned? The numbers. The answer is yes, by the way. The only available statistic, and again, I have talked about this survey for a hot minute. When it dropped, I've done a number of talks on it. Look for my video that says over 1 million Israelites, church isn't ready. I talked about down there in Tampa, was one of the main times, but I've talked about it before. So I've been talking about this, and it's interesting to see a non-Christian outlet picked the survey up because this is what we got. And people are like, oh, only 1,000? 1,000's a decent sample size. It's not a bad sample size. Okay? If you got more funding, you can do more people, but 1,000 ain't bad. And the fact they even thought to ask this is fascinating. And I believe we have Roswell Berry or someone associated with him to credit for that. So shout out to Roswell Berry. Only he's like, identification in the United States were collected as part of a small national survey conducted by an evangelical Christian research firm in 2019. For that survey, which sought to capture African-American attitudes towards the state of Israel, Lifeway Research, that's right, Lifeway, the Southern Baptist, book, right, that's them, asked 1,019 African-Americans, which of the following best describes your opinion of Black Israelite teachings? So this was in the survey, which I have talked about how wild it is. But there it is. Can someone drop that video too that I got, which says 1 million Hebrew Israelites, church isn't ready? Nobody dropped the other one, did they? Where's that other one I was telling you to drop with David Wood last night, the Acts 17 one? Nobody's doing it. Come on, live chat. There's like 100 people in here. Come on. All right. Most responded, 62% said they were not familiar with the teachings, but 19% said they agree with, quote, most of the core ideas taught by Black Hebrew Israelites. That's bad. And 4% said they consider themselves Hebrew Israelites. That's 23% who basically agree, by the way. You understand that 23%? That means we got to work in that 62%. We haven't heard it yet, especially preventative maintenance, ladies and gentlemen, doctrinally speaking, in the church needs to happen. The remaining 15% said they either firmly oppose the teachings. Only 15%. More people agree than oppose. Ooh, man, everybody should firmly oppose the teachings or disagree with most of them. The survey did not specify about what those teachings are. Right, so there's some ambiguity there, but it's a good start. The 2020 census put the black population at 41.1 million. So extrapolating from the Lifeway data, there are approximately 1.6 million Hebrew Israelites in the U.S., not counting the small numbers of Latinos and Native Americans who also belong to Israelite groups. So notice he specifically mentioned that, and it's not a very substantial number. Most of us know that. They're going to act like, oh, don't forget about Issachar and Gad. It's not a substantial number. All right. Nonetheless, shout out to the Gadites. All right. Extrapolating from Lifeway data, by the way. So you can say 1.6, you can say 1.8, depending which way you go there. And 7.8 million people who may not identify as Israelites, but who agree with the spiritual movement's main teachings. That sentence right there is the most concerning, though. And I haven't even had much chance to talk about that in public, but I knew that when I was reading this. I've talked about it a little bit. Do you understand how scary? My goodness. The church has a lot of work to do. Because this thing would never catch traction if we were on our gospel. You know, for lots of these people, the attention that Wes and Irving have brought to their belief system has been validating. Here I come. First time they quote your guy here. Israelism is becoming part of the plausibility structure of Black America. Christian activist and author Vocab Malone told the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, referring to a social context in which certain ideas are considered credible. Now, this is kind of cool here, real quick. Because even though I'm just this little old guy, master's degree on YouTube, working part-time, right? This was a concept that I introduced into the conversation, at least in this particular article, because the interviewer said, can you define plausibility structure? It's something that has to do with like societal belief formations. You can look it up. There's a whole thing with it. Very fascinating stuff, right? And actually, it's interesting to hear like Mike Lacona talk about it in relationship to supernaturalism and miracles and resurrection claims and things like that. Anyways, looking at it here, in some of his debates, he discussed this a while ago, years ago at this point. So there's different ways you can use it, but this idea of plausibility structure, I didn't make it up though, but that's true, right? And so that's what we're understanding. So people are pulling from it like they used to pull from Christianity or Black Islam, right? Now this is another thing they're pulling from. It's bad, man. Like, astrology and horoscopes and New Age stuff were not as much a part of mainstream Americans' plausibility structure, perhaps until the 60s and 70s. And now they're all over, right? You meet someone new. What's your sign? I mean, that's a real conversation stopper for some people. My goodness. I'm saying if you're not the right matchup, right? I mean, it's really out there, including Christians. referring to a social context in which certain ideas are considered credible. Quote, the suspicions that a lot of folks have toward the Jewish community, they think they're vindicated now. Notice I said they think they're vindicated now. Almost like what's going on is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, they really are trying to hold us down. Now, here's what's cool. He got a hold of Scott McConnell, Lifeway's executive director. This is good journalism, people. He had to interview a lot of people for this. This is a long article. Scott McConnell, Lifeway's executive director, told JTA that the survey sponsor, the Christian Zionist organization Philos Project, supplied the question about Israelite teachings. Asked if there are plans to include similar questions in future surveys, he replied, I know there are some pastors at African-American churches that have concerns about some of their parishioners being led astray by the teachings of the Israelites, so we'll keep it on our radar. Imagine one day a whole survey about Hebrew Islamism or something like that. Will it happen? I don't know. Malone, who uses an alias in keeping with hip-hop culture, is a close observer of the Israelite world. Libertarian Prince, why do I got to address the chat? What's your proof of that, man? What's your proof that David Anderson, who spoke in Lashon Kodash, who was wearing his garments during the attack, who targeted Jewish folks, what's your evidence that David Anderson was a Muslim? Do you even know what you're talking about? If you're telling me your evidence is Bishop Nathaniel, that's not a credible source at all. And he needs to prove it to you instead of you just believing it. We're not making things up. I did a whole show on it, which you clearly have never watched. I don't trust anything you say. I'm going to remember your name because this means you're a person who just repeats what you hear by your leaders like a good cult member would. The Phoenix resident frequently engages in debates on the street and online with members of groups described as hateful by the Southern Poverty Law Center, including IUIC, Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, Israelite Church of God Jesus Christ, and the Sakari. I don't know why they didn't include GMS in there. Most of my street encounters have been with GMS. But hey, in hopes of convincing them to follow what he considers to be the true path of Christianity. You know, that's the way a reporter would write it, but that is true, isn't it? And I'm not talking about being reformed, although that would be nice. I'm talking about believing the gospel, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about believing the good news about Jesus Christ. You know? That's what I'm talking about. The things that Jesus said, the things that Jesus did, the things that he fulfilled, who he was, his love, Jesus Christ. Look at Mark 1, the beginning of the good news about Jesus the Messiah, the Son of God, as it is written in Isaiah the prophet. That's Mark 1:1. He's saying this is the beginning of the gospel, the evangelion, this good news about Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God. And then he quotes Isaiah. I will send my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him. That's what I'm talking about. Founded in 2003, IUIC has proven the most adept at creating public spectacles and garnering media coverage. The group operates 71 U.S. chapters and 20 international ones. By the way, just stop for a second. I think they got more. The ADL doesn't, I don't know every group or whatever, but they're doing what they can, right? Hey, but you guys see this? You guys see this? Hey, you listening? You listening here? 91 chapters. 91. It's not just in, Orlando. It's in Tallahassee when it comes to IUIC. You understand what I'm saying? It's in little cities in North Carolina. This is IUIC. This is only one group we're talking about. And it holds men's conferences each year that culminate in choreographed marches on city streets. Now, I did tell him about that. In fact, let me see. What's this? Is there a link here? Oh, it's to a TikTok thing? Okay, I see. Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. Like the one on Sunday in Brooklyn. So IUIC is expert at these marches. They've been practicing this for a while. Based on the size of those marches, Malone estimated that national membership has grown from around 5,000 in 2015 to around 10,000 today. Now, let me stop there for a second. There's some other aspects I've taken into my estimates, okay? And they are estimates, okay? One has to do with knowledge of the size of hall space rented out by main camps when that information is available. It's not always available. Sometimes it is. And I'll be frank with you, when it is available, it's by the Israelites' own admission. I don't mean spies or insiders. I mean, they tell you where they're at and you can figure out the stuff. That's what I'm saying. It's not some secret thing. Oh, we're having our Passover here. We're doing this here. And then taking that with ex-members or current members who are open, which is rare, estimates about how many people attend the Passovers. Then you can do some math on that, as well as with the marches. Specifically, that's more specific to IUIC that they hold every year. Now, maybe a person could do estimates about how many members are in Sakari based upon how many people they have when they go to the club. You know, like when they have their Passover without the P in Atlanta. You know, maybe that's... But they said a lot of those guys weren't members. They were just there to hang out, I guess. So, hey, who knows, right? Well, that's not the only thing. Sam Kestenbaum interviewed Nathaniel twice of IUIC, and in one of those, he confirmed my current understanding of the estimate the IUIC had at that time. So let me know those estimates were on the right track. And GOCC, the second largest One West group, has been a lot more open and forthright about their membership, and they have decent understanding of some of the other groups' membership as well. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, it's not as deep as people try to make it be. Huh? Other radical groups likely have much smaller memberships, but don't share any figures, for preferring to quote play their cards close to their chest. Malone said, "I did say that, and that was in a text message when the article was almost done. He wanted to do some follow up, whatever. Now, we don't know. We can make estimates, but the estimates for the other groups besides IUIC and GOCC are going to be much rougher, okay? But I can tell you that it really is top 5, most likely. Really is. Besides IUIC and GOCC. GMS, ISUPK, and Sakari. It really is. That really is the top 5 when it comes to numbers from everything I've been able to tell. These estimates suggest that the extremists comprise a very small percentage of the 1.6 million Hebrew Israelites living in the United States. That's true and that's good. Unfortunately, they can move a lot, and they're kind of the mouthpiece in a lot of ways because they're sort of at the forefront in a lot of ways, you know, the vanguard. Ultimately, IUIC has a goal of recruiting 144,000 Black, Latino, and Native American people. Now, I remember your boy Deacon said, IUIC, they never said that. They didn't say that. They didn't say that. Right? They never said that. Israel United of Christ is dedicated to waking up the 144,000 elect men from the lost 12 tribes of Israel, also known as the Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. If you are interested in learning more about who the Israelites really are, then contact to schedule a visit at one of our campuses. That's a good image to save there, isn't it? I think it is. Notice it says Israel United in Christ, leaders of the nation. And then they put their guys. So, hey, you definitely should have looked into that there, Deacon, before you made that comment. There's a link you could have clicked on, but you didn't do it because you don't do that kind of stuff. Prayer requests. Many of us have desperate needs and desires in our lives, and many times we think the heavens are closed to us and all hope is lost. However, we are here to intercede and pray for one another. Strengthen one another, encourage one another. Don't lose hope in those prayer. Hey, all the people in the audience who are Arab, African, Asian, white, Indian from India, please put in a prayer request form to IUIC. Put some stuff in there, and at the end put, I say this as a concerned Asian man. I say this as a concerned Arab woman. Hey, IUIC does think the heavens are close to you. You know, we should bombard them with prayer. I pray that cults will will be defeated in Jesus' name, theologically speaking. IUIC is a goal of recruiting 140 for the who will be spared by God during the end time, as foretold in the book of Revelation. Or we could say how they do and make it plural. In order to achieve this goal, this group sends representatives to proselytize overseas. Someone dropped the verse reference in the live chat about crossing land and sea to make a proselyte a son of hell worse than yourself. Someone please drop the verse in there that Jesus says about the Pharisees, including in parts of Africa and the Caribbean. IUIC did not respond to requests for comments from JTA. That's because it's not our people. We have no time for them. We don't hate them. We just don't care about them. Both the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL monitor the activities of IUIC and other radical camps, as Israelites call their groups. However, spokespeople for both organizations told JTA they do not know how many people belong to these camps. An online movement. What is clear is that the camps have greatly expanded their reach in recent years, taking their message from street corners to the entire globe thanks to the internet and social media. I heard a Sakari guy say that the internet was created for the Hebrew Israelites. It was created for us. Created for the Hebrew Israelites. Right? Well, there's so many comments I can make that I will not make. IUIC members run dozens of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts where they post a constant stream of videos and memes, many containing anti-Semitic tropes. That's true. And by the way, the term trope is old. Someone had never heard it before. That's because y'all don't read widely. Trope first usually became associated with TV and film, where they would say, here's a trope of a sitcom, here's a trope of a rom-com, here's a trope of a sci-fi movie, and these are common themes and things that happen, right? That's usually where you first see trope. It's like a running deal, right? Okay, thank you, my brother Alejandro, coming through in the clutch. You get the applause button. Woe to you, teachers of the law, Pharisees, you hypocrites. You travel over land and sea to win a single convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as much a son of hell as you are. Thank you, Built for Speed, as well. We got to become versed on these scriptures, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate y'all coming through. All right. One recent Instagram post shows a startled-looking Hasidic Jewish man holding his hat above the words, "The Synagogue of Satan." Louis Farrakhan, the leader of the Nation of Islam, uses similar language about Jews. A video he recorded this month defending West and Irving has been viewed millions of times. The main IUIC YouTube channel, and by the way, what unites these guys besides that they're cultists? They're anti-Semitic. The main IUIC YouTube channel at IUIC in the Classroom has 126,000 subscribers and 29.4 million video views. A series of videos posted 3 years ago on the channel of local chapters provide some insight into how members hear about IUIC and why they join. The most common way these members say they found their way to the camp was via videos they watched online, and that's why we call it conversion via algorithm. And that's why I would rather be writing books and blogs, but I'm here making videos because of the importance of this in this particular online theological battle. Prior to actually coming to IUIC, I did do some Israelite window shopping, recounts Officer Joshua of IUIC Tallahassee. I always question myself, why is it that our people are at the bottom? How can we get the worst jobs and so forth? I knew Christianity wasn't answering my questions. So what I did was I just started soul searching. Why do you say soul searching when you mean Google searching? I don't understand these guys. What he means is he started Google searching, not soul searching. As part of his quest, Joshua says he stumbled upon a video of Bishop Nathaniel and other IUIC leaders preaching on the street. I was like, man, these brothers really know what they're doing. They really have our history. Bishop Nathaniel says that the Dark Ages was called the Dark Ages because dark men ruled during that time. I have a TikTok on it. That's not why it's called that. That was a slur used by white Europeans when the Enlightenment came because they viewed themselves as now having the light of rationality and those before them being dumbed down in religious ignorance. And so that was a dark age of ignorance where people were believing in God and demons. And now there's the Enlightenment. Human spirit can be free, no longer shackled by the bondage of human religion. The Dark Ages are here. The Enlightenment is here. Not because dark men rule. Did you just make that up? Oh, no, you heard it from One West when you were a student there, and you haven't changed the story since. That's what actually made me do more research on IUIC and the truth. Did you really do more of your research on IUIC? Minister Ahmed El Ben Yehuda speaks. The African Hebrew Israelites Annual New World Passover Celebration to Israel, May 23. Andrew, the author, does have a book coming out on the Demona folks. That's what's going on there. In another video, Sister Israelite from the Concord, North Carolina branch explains that as a young adult, she felt uncertain about her life's purpose. Then her mother shared information with her about IUIC. Imagine a mother leading her daughter into Hebrew Israelism. Titus 2 tells the women what they're supposed to do with the younger women in the churches. This is a failure of that. This is the reversal of that. Leading the young ones astray. And I'm not saying she's super young, but you understand? Folks of all ages are getting caught up. She was so happy it changed her life. Imagine the message of, you're actually a real Jew, you're not African, and all these other people are going to be your slaves, changing your life and making you happy. Something's wrong. I had to take notice. And I had to come check it out for myself, she says. I fell in love with it. Isn't that fascinating? I fell in love with it. The ideology. The group. When Christians are off drugs and out of gangs and no longer addicted to gambling, what do they say? I fell in love with Jesus. I fell in love with God. I fell in love with the truth about him and who he is and knowing him. That's what we fall in love with. These folks fall in love with an idea that they're the true Jews. You're not. You're falling in love with yourself. It's idolatry of self based upon a lie. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with finding out who I am. How's this any different than a hippie, man? Number of black male celebrities have also been drawn to the wider Israelite. Don't forget about Fantasia now, and Whitney Houston into the wider Israelite orbit in recent years, including rappers Kendrick Lamar and Kodak Black, TV host Nick Cannon, boxer Floyd Mayweather, and retired NBA player Amar Sotomayor. Some of these celebrities appear to have been exposed to Israelite teaching by relatives and other acquaintances. Lamar, who famously rapped, "I'm an Israelite, don't call me black no more." By the way, someone dropped a link that I did for a Christian research journal called Spirituality and Modern Hip Hop, in which I discuss Kanye's theology at the time and Kendrick Lamar's as well. It's free PDF download at equip.org. Someone go to equip.org and find that and drop that in the link. Please, you need to read it. All right. Lamar, who famously rapped, "I'm an Israelite, don't come back no more" on a 2017 song, learned about Israelism from a cousin, that's Carl, who now says IUIC is a cult, by the way. Shout out to Carl, who was involved with IUIC. Black began identifying as a Levite in 2017 after studying scripture with an Israelite priest while serving a jail sentence in Florida. Sotomayor has said his mother taught him he had Hebraic roots. He officially converted to Judaism in 2020, a step most Israelite reject because it contradicts their claims of already being authentic Jews. Isabel Williamson, analyst at ADL Center on Extremism, who tracks radical Israelite camps, said celebrity endorsements of the ideology can have a big impact because they come from figures who are widely respected. I'd like to talk to some of these folks someday. I wonder if they would be interested in talking to me. I don't know. Maybe they view me as too different or something. I feel like we could have a good conversation, though. Shout out to Jazz M for the super chat. Thank you very much, everybody, for making this go on and on and on and on. The beat keeps rocking till the break of dawn. If people came upon an extremist black Hebrew Israelite group street preaching, it might be easier to dismiss it and recognize the extreme ideology behind it, she said. But when it's being shared by these influential figures, people might be less likely to recognize the really insidious ideology and dangerous anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that are behind these statements. Some truth to that is the mainstreaming of Hebrew Israelism and the mainstreaming of anti-Semitism. True, but the thing is, I don't have to drive to where the Hebrew Israelites teach. I can walk there. Literally. For years, I've been able to just walk there because they set up in my neighborhood. Now, I saw in real time the change from 2010 to 5 years later. I saw it. Let me tell you, when I used to interact with them on the street, before I was really public with all this, and it was much less, by the way, but I did. 19th Avenue Camelback, recorded it, audio only. The crowd was not feeling them. And I'm talking about everybody. This was not a white crowd. This was not a white crowd out there. The crowd was annoyed, irritated, bothered, and said as much frequently. And I saw this multiple times. Next time I went back, One of the times I went back when I skipped some years because I was doing a lot more stuff on Islam, went back. Ooh, the crowd. Now, it's obviously not the same people, but it's the same location. The crowd was totally different. They were almost to a man and woman automatically against me. They were ready to fight. They were viewing these guys as prophets, and part of it was just them being out there all the time. The landscape has changed. It has changed, and people are way more open to this than they were. I saw it firsthand. It's not just the celebrities. The celebrities are kind of like, you know, the icing on top for this thing. Tip of the iceberg, maybe it's better to say it. Williams added that a range of extremist groups have seized on comments made by Weston Irving. Now, that is definitely true. It's not just BHI and NOI groups that are leveraging this moment. Williams said, we've seen white supremacists who are also using this recent attention and circulation of anti-Semitic conspiracies to promote their own agenda. She's right, that's true, and that shows what binds them together is not love of any particular thing, but hate of hate of the Jewish people, straight up. Rabbi Capers Fournier is the most prominent Israelite leader in the U.S. He serves as a chief rabbi of the International Israelite Board of Rabbis, an organization that provides spiritual guidance to about 2,500 people in the United States, along with tens of thousands of Israelites in Southern and West Africa. In an interview, Fournier condemned West Irving and the radical Israelite camps that have rallied around them. God is never about divisiveness, Fournier said. God is never about hatred. God is never about you ain't. I don't have to say that what you aren't to make me who I am. More balanced perspective there. And Fournier is Michelle Obama's cousin. I don't know if you knew that. A member of the Chicago Board of Rabbis and the leader of a Chicago synagogue with a mixed membership of around 200 Jews and Israelites, Fournier was at pains to differentiate his community from IUIC and its ilk. His follows the Torah and supports the state of Israel, he said. Others follow both the Old and New Testaments, worship Jesus, and reject Israel's government as illegitimate. Not all of them accept the New Testament. Number one. Number two, none of them worship Jesus. Fournier thinks these are basically Christians. And there's some truth that they're more affiliated with like forms of Protestantism in certain ways. But they don't worship Jesus. Fournier, I respect, and I feel bad for him sometimes. Shout out to Jay Wills, by the way, for the super chat. But they don't worship Jesus. They don't worship. If they did, this might be a whole different conversation. Literally today, Deacon was saying how Jesus is not God. Right? Whatever army that Kyrie is speaking about, we are not part of his army. That's kind of funny. He said, referring to a comment Irving made during an October 29 press conference about how he has a whole army behind him. Man, IOIC seized upon that. But Fournier said, another of Irving's recent statements, I cannot be anti-Semitic if I know where I come from, resonated with him and his congregants. Even non-one Westers, even the Old Testament only guys, they got a little bit of that in there. It's a dumb thing to say. Let me tell you why. Number one, you're assuming the truth of your hypothesis, your unsupported conclusion. You're begging the question by saying this. Okay? That's the debate. Are you Semitic? You ain't Semitic, bro. Number one. Number two, you can be Semitic and be anti-Semitic. Self-loathing, self-hating. In fact, that's what a lot of Sakari and those kind of folks say about black Christians, especially the ones who support me or people who are with me. What are you talking about? It's not even logical. Also, a lot of the one Westers are anti-Semitic because they hate Edomites, and Edomites are Semitic according to them. We are Semitic, he said, of black people who identify as Israelites. So now we really have to draw a line when anti-Semitism is only defined by one's complexion or ethnicity. It's never defined by complexion. I don't know anybody who does that. We were not the ones that racialized Judaism. Notice his anti-Judaistic element here. Who's he saying did? The guys he works with. And we will never racialize it because Jews are not a race. Semitic refers to people who speak Semitic languages such as Hebrew and Aramaic. So much messiness in this. Outside of the United States, the largest organized group of Israelites is located in Israel. The African Hebrewites of Jerusalem are a Demona-based community of more than 3,000 African-American expatriates and their Israeli-born offspring. African Hebrew youth serve in the army, not Kyrie Irving's or IUIC's army. Good line, by the way. Isn't that a great line? I love that line. But the Israel Defense Forces. That was a great line. I love it. Shout out to Andrew for the wordplay. After 53 years in Israel, the community has never been fully accepted, in part because they are not Jewish according to halakha or Jewish law. Currently, some 100 community members are being threatened with deportation for living in the country illegally. I need to do a show on that sometime. And I thought the number was closer to 60, but I don't know. Shout out to Youngblood Priest Ahmed El Ben Yehuda for the super chat. The African Israelites Minister of Information said he interpreted Irving's remarks as a reference to the global awakening of people of African ancestors to Hebrew roots. Hold on, let me stop there real quick. Hey, you know what's so funny about this? My man Haka of Sakari said, I hate saying the globe. I hate saying global. Let's say worldwide. You know why? Because he's a flat earther and he doesn't like saying globe. When he was reading this article, he said, I hate saying globe. I love how these Hebrewites telling themselves, not only do I think I'm a Jew, I also think the earth is flat. Man, I believe all kinds of unlikely things, we'll put it that way. The global awakening of people of African ancestry to the Hebraic roots. He said the backlash Irving has faced shows that the conversation around this awakening must involve qualified representatives of communities who can cite reputable sources. I have read some of the books by the Demona community, especially the ones put out by Ben Ami, and they are not reputable. They're acting like they've got something different. They cannot get away from Ben Ami and his pseudo science. I have almost 20 Ben Ami books, I think, between physical and digital. It's at least 15. I know that for a fact. There's a couple more still on the list. That's not reputable, man. It is not reputable stuff. This is a game of, you know? Not documentaries such as the one Irving boosted. Now, I do agree. You know, Dalton stuff, not that good. Hebrews to Negroes, Wake Up Black America, in support of their claims of Israelite ancestry. What is certain is that Israel and Judaism must figure out a way to better accommodate these communities. Ben Yehuda said, this is not going to fade away, and it shouldn't. It will intensify as the awakening continues. He's got a point there, but the job is the church's. That's what's up. How this awakening will affect Jews and established Jewish communities remains to be seen. That's an understatement of the year. In September, George Washington University Program and Exchange released a report titled, I know I'm reading a little fast. You can read it on the screen. You guys can see it, right? I got to do a whole video on this, by the way. I've mentioned this a number of times and I've not been able to do it. Shout out to Mr. Phil Fox for the real super chat, the big super chat, man. You got any questions for me, bro? You got any questions for me? Because you dropped the real super chat, brother. I really appreciate it. And you are one of my favorite Gadites. I really don't mean that way, because I'm just, oh my goodness. I love you, bro, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Report titled Contemporary Violent Extremism and the Black Israelite Movement. The report noted that the predominant threat today comes not from Israelite groups themselves, but from individuals loosely affiliated with or inspired by the movement. That is right. And what I'm telling you is, I'm not going to be like one of these guys who acts like no one else gets it. I'm going to tell you if they get it or don't from my perspective, okay? This person, the people involved with this PDF, which is pretty big, and I went through it, and I need to go through it in public, gets it. That is the great concern. That is the great fear. Hey, ask an on-topic question, and I'll answer it. I love you. And by the way, it's not Black Hebrew Israelites. Don't forget the Gadites and the Issacharites and those like them. So that's a very racist question to say it's only a black thing. Youngblood Priest. Don't you know that? Shame on you. You need to do more research on your religion. Okay. Malone, the Christian activist, cautioned that as the extremist wing of the Israelite movement grows, more violent lone wolves may emerge. So that's the person, the report and myself are saying the same thing there, right? There's a big funnel with any movement, and the bigger the funnel is, you get certain things down at the bottom, he said. This is not Buddhism. This is a different kind of thing with a different kind of rhetoric. And would you believe that's the mic drop? They ended the article with a quote by this guy, who has 2 thumbs and had a quote that ended the article by the JTA. This guy. Some of you hate me. I'm from the Midwest, man. I'm allowed to be a little corny, man. You know? But true. Now, I never referred to myself as a Christian activist. I said Christian apologist. He said, can I say activist? I said, sure. Okay. Right? Starts with A still, right? Yeah, Jay Wills knows what's up. Jay Wills knows what's up. So do you. Okay. Now, let's see here. We are going to look at one more. Shout out, though, to Andrew, who dropped this article. But what's crazy is that's not the only one. Who reads the Christian Post? Who looks at the Christian Post? I do. Well, guess what? The Christian Post, they had a little thing with me. Where they referred, I could not believe it. The Kanye Kyrie Storm, an Explainer by Rachel Ferguson, contributor. Again, I couldn't believe this. I was shocked when I saw this here. Why is it? I want to go through. So this is from the Christian Post. They didn't interview me, but they did refer to some of my work here. Although I'm having trouble getting this thing lined up properly here. Just give me a second, people. Oh. Okay. Come on now. Oh. Come on, help me. Oh, there, I got it. Okay. Problem is I'm kind of in the way here. Okay. Now we needed to go a little bit here. A little here. Okay, my goodness. Okay, there, we've got it. Hundreds of black men dressed in purple this week and lined up to insist on Kyrie Irving's reinstatement into the NBA. His crime, he favorably retweeted a Netflix documentary. I like the Christian Post, but they messed up there. It was the Amazon Prime documentary. It's not featured on Netflix. Fix that, please. Based on the anti-Semitic document, The Protocol of the Elders of Zion. It quotes it, but it's really based upon Ronald Dalton Jr.'s book. It's not technically based upon the Protocol of the Elders of Zion. It refers to it, and it has the same kind of stuff, but that's not what it's based upon, which included the view of the black Israelites that they are the true Jews. Well, the Protocol of the Elders of Zion didn't have that in it, unless I missed something. Do you understand what I'm saying? A little bit of problem here in the beginning. You know, I gave love to Andrew. Much love to Rachel. She's a professor, Professor Ferguson. But you got a couple mistakes there in the opening paragraph. But okay, it doesn't mean it's. Let's keep going here. His retweet came on the heels of Kanye West's tweet declaring that he was about to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. Imagine anyone saying that. People can't undersell that, man. That's crazy. Kanye went on to accuse Jewish entertainment managers of secretly murdering family members of various black entertainment artists, including Kanye's own mother. He really did say that. While decrying anti-Semitism, some of my mutuals were tempted to affirm Kanye's rage. Is that what we call them now? Mutuals? That's odd. Since it's true that many of the powerful entertainment managers in Hollywood are Jewish, and after all of his shenanigans, Adidas finally dropped Kanye only after his comments about Jews. A few nights later, Dave Chappelle jokingly acknowledged on Saturday Night Live that Jews are so powerful in Hollywood that their concerns seem to supersede all others. Social media was alive with claims that Kanye and Dave Chappelle were uncovering the Illuminati, while Jewish commentators argued over whether or not to be scared, offended, or amused by Chappelle's monologue. Along with the random attacks on religious Jews in New York that had become endemic, the strange horseshoe of rising left and right-wing anti-Semitism demands our attention. Now, that's something I mentioned in regards to the last article. This one's not as long, by the way. Is America's Jewish population too well off for us to concern ourselves with conspiratorial claims against them? Is a cry of anti-Semitism against Kanye, Kyrie, or Chappelle a failure to appreciate a legitimate complaint in the black community? Who are the Black Israelites? Black Israelites march around the Nets Stadium on November 9th and 20th, 2022, showing support for Kyrie Irving, himself a Muslim. Check out Eric Mason's Urban Apologetics. Great book, by the way, especially that chapter. Or Jude 3's interview with Vocab Malone. Check it out. That's right. Now, I never talked to Professor Ferguson, but a little name drop there, and I hope people do check it out. For helpful rundowns on this 140-year-old movement, BIHAs believe that Deuteronomy 28 shows that blacks and possibly Latino and indigenous people, well, are the true Jews of the terrible experiences they've endured, which sound like the curses described in this passage. Not really. According to this view, those who call themselves Ashkenazi Jews now are actually Turkish in derivation and converted around 700 AD. True, but they actually, if they're one Westers, would go a little further and say, actually, Amalek. And that's what we talked about last night on the David Wood interview. Can someone please drop the link that I did with David Wood, the interview on last night about this, please? Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Sound? What you saying, sound? I got sound? What do you mean, sound? Why are you saying sound? Huh? Anyways. While this group is wide-ranging enough to include more and less virulent strands, for instance, the Israel United in Christ group formally disavows violence on their website. Oh. Okay. That's true, but formally disavowing is different than violent rhetoric and being associated with a violent movement in its inclination and intonation. And here's a little problem in the article. I hadn't read this entirely all the way through. I missed some of this. I skimmed through it. The original One West group is viciously racist against Jews, whites, and Arabs. But Professor Ferguson, IUIC is a One West group that came out of One West. They just toned down some of the rhetoric. They tricked you here, to be honest. You know, they are against Jewish people, whites, and Arabs. Still, IUIC specifically. The JTA did better than the Christian Post here, and I like Professor Ferguson. Oh. Some subgroups condone rape of teen girls in heaven and forms of polygamy that deeply oppress second and third wives. Now, they can have how many ever you want, right? And also, saying GMS, who does condone the rape of teen girls and all of that, is a subgroup doesn't make sense when Elder Tahar was the highest ranking member under the seven heads at the old One West school. And he was quoted in the New York Times while he was a member of the original school as talking about rape and polygamy. So this goes back. Softer versions of Black Hebrewism are reflected in the work of rappers such as Kendrick Lamar. That's true, but he's really just quoting IUIC there. I mean, what he particularly espouses, but it's connected to IUIC, which you would have known if you read my article on the subject. Other alternative urban spiritualities. Now, how did they get that term? Because I don't know who used that first, but I thought I was one of the... Anyways. Other alternative urban spiritualities have similarly separatist and supremacist tendencies. Comedicists argue that most of... let me see here. What's the link here? Oh, it's a Wikipedia? Oh. That most of the amazing accomplishments in history actually come from Egypt, Kemet, including the story of Christ, which they claim derives from the myth of Horus. I recently met a Kemeticist who argued that it's not Kemetist, it's Kemeticist, who argue that black people can only flourish by being educated in a set of stories about Africa that cannot be verified, such as the claim that Socrates went to school there. Now, that's actually true. They do talk about that. I mean, it's from the book Stolen Legacy. According to Plato's dialogue, Socrates never left Athens except to fight in a battle when he was young. That my desire to find evidence for the stories belied my white European mind, whose standards of rational justification cannot serve black people. Nor did he think that black people could be successful in a market-based economy. The Nation of Islam holds that white people are a science experiment gone bad, and their leader, Minister Farrakhan, calls Jews termites. Malcolm X, on the other hand, rejected these views prior to his death after becoming disillusioned with the immoral behavior of the movement's founder, Elijah Muhammad. Black Americans comprise the most religious demographic in America, with around 80% identifying as Christian. But outside of that, supermajority groups like the Black Israelites, Kemeticists, and the Nation of Islam can be especially attractive to disaffected young black men and women impressed with their powerful presence and erudite explanations of their beliefs and how they lead to black power. As my co-author and I chronicle in Black Liberation Through the Marketplace, Black people and men in particular were criminalized, unjustly imprisoned, and left to die of disease under the convict leasing program that ran from the end of Reconstruction into the early 20th century. Racial terror through lynching and massacre persisted throughout the Jim Crow period, and official state-sponsored exclusion from basic economic and political rights didn't end until the mid-1960s. This is all true, by the way, unfortunately. That some portion of such a group would turn to cults of radical Black identity, separatism, and Black supremacy. Black supremacy and Black power ought not to be all that surprising. True. In fact, we ought to be more surprised that so few did. The moral sophistication and practical brilliance of the civil rights movement is a product not of Black power movements, but of the Black church. Amen. Its methods and achievements, its methods shouldn't be IT apostrophe S there. It should be just ITS. You see that? It's a grammatical mistake. It's not IT apostrophe S, it's ITS. Its method and achievements, and even its music, just like in the latter part, and its religious commitments have become influential the world over. While Black power is a popular topic in college history class, it was and has always been a fairly fringe element in Black American life, but the conspirator element of typical anti-Semitism might be especially challenging for Black Americans who really were the victims of various government conspiracies, including the Tuskegee medical experience from the 1930s to the 1960s. This is true and it's awful, and quite possibly government involvement in the inner-city crack epidemic of the 1980s, the anti-capitalism of anti-Semitism. Okay, the built-in anti-Semitism of these movements is not unique to alternative urban spiritualities. Similar conspiracy theories against Jews claims that they are at the heart of a globalist empire of finance, and blood libel claims that they are involved in various forms of secret murder, which basically Kanye was repeating, trace their roots to the Middle Ages. That's true, and that's the shame of Christendom, if we want to call it there, huh? The association of Jews with high finance arose in two ways. Christians and Muslims disallowed lending and interest, but because of a verse in which Jews are allowed to lend to Gentiles, Jews were allowed as an exception to this rule, and often not being allowed to own land, Jews were forced into the cash-based economy. Most Jews were simple tailors or other sorts of craftsmen, but the fact that the local banker or jeweler had a high likelihood of being Jewish created a stereotype association with wealth and privilege. The Jewish faith tradition is also a highly literate one, so that as economies shifted toward information and innovation, they naturally excelled. The Rothschild of Germany founded and expanded a large international banking business. When the interwar hyperinflation sent Germany into financial chaos, Hitler could draw upon a bundle of prejudiced ideas to blame the Jewish bankers, even though governments print money and cause hyperinflations, not banks. This is some good background. So this is the part of the article that's helpful to understand, okay? This part's good right here. The origin of blood libel, the idea that Jews were killing Christian children to bake matzah with. Crazy, right? Or that they were poisoning the wells of their fellow townspeople. This is all true stuff in the Middle Ages, by the way. It's much harder to explain. It may be as simple as prejudice against those who are different, or the association of Jews with the killing of Christ. Later, Jews fared better during the Black Plague because of their hand-washing rituals, but since no one understood germs at the time, they were assumed to have demonic assistance. Whatever the explanation, these pernicious rumors led to violent pogroms, especially in Russia. And I hate this next sentence, but it's true. Martin Luther's frustration with Jews' unwillingness to convert to Protestantism led him into an anti-Semitic fervor, including a recommendation to totally suppress their religion, confiscate all their wealth, and subject them to forced labor. Why did you go that way, Luther? Why? One day I got to do a show on that. The anti-capitalist aspects of anti-Semitism are often forgotten, even though they're quite prominent. Karl Marx himself said that money is the jealous god of Israel, and that the religion of the real Jew is huckstering in self-interest. The association of Jews with some sort of global capitalist cabal is just the latest rendition of an age-old accusation. So the author is much better on this stuff than they were the One West stuff, which is to be expected, but they should have talked to somebody like me for the first part, because this is the good part, as far as the knowledge and information and accuracy. The association of Jews with some sort of global capitalist cabal is just the latest rendition of age-old accusation. Henry Ford, not such a capitalist slouch himself, said that all evil was due to the Jewish capitalists, including the war, the outbreak of thieving and robbery all over the country, and even the inefficiency of the Navy. Notice that Ford's series for his local newspaper was called The International Jew, a slight against the cosmopolitan nature of free trade. The most famous anti-Semitic, the most famous of anti-Semitic screeds, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, records the fake meetings of a Jewish plan to rule the world. Shout out to the table for the super chat. Honestly, all I can say is watch all my videos on my ISUPK playlist. Can someone please help me? Go to my YouTube page, and I have a whole ISUPK playlist. Can you drop that in the link for the table, please? Because I have an ISUPK playlist. Okay. Okay. Records I'm going to finish this article, then we'll be done with the show, by the way. I'm not going to drag it on, okay? Meetings of a Jewish plan to rule the world. Hitler was deeply influenced by the work, who, leaving no hated thing unattributed to the Jews, blamed them as capitalists for the interwar hyperinflation and as Bolshevists for starting the 1917 Communist Revolution. A favorite of Black and American anti-Semitic conspiracists is the claim that Jewish people were central to the transatlantic slave trade and to the Southern planter population. They weren't. Recently, Jew hating as a form of anti-globalism is back, with right-wing protesters at Charlottesville chanting, "Jews will not replace us." While the less pro-Palestine push has careened into quite a few instances of unhinged anti-Zionism in European politics and on American college campuses. The most puzzling thing about this trend is its sheer irrationality. I thought this was shorter, but maybe I was wrong. As any good theorist of capitalism will tell you, it works so well because it's not actually being planned by anyone. In fact, no person or group of people has the information or expertise to determine economic outcomes on a grand scale. We can plan and build businesses, and when we do, we benefit our customers and employees. But beyond that, I'm not sure how this global cabal is supposed to be motivated. But if they're trying to decrease abject poverty and infant and maternal mortality or extend our average lifespans, they're doing a bang-up job. Should we be worried? Should we be worried? Yes, we should. This is the last section here. Our knee-jerk analysis of oppressor and oppressed easily leads us into shrugging off threats to Jewish people, since they are overrepresented among the cultural and economic elite. But I would warn heavily against this. The 20th century gives us no shortage of privileged groups oppressed unjustly for that very reason. Obviously, the European Jews themselves come to mind, but don't forget that Kulak's landlords were starved to death by the Soviets. Pol Pot murdered a third of the Cambodian population in 4 years, including people who wore glasses because it meant they usually that they could read, and professors, killing thousands because their glasses gave them an intellectual appearance, and Mao student groups would humiliate and torture their own professors in struggle sessions. The insane power of the modern nation state, weaponized by anti-capitalist ideology, allowed all of these things to happen to people who had money and cultural cachet, on the assumption that they were somehow harming others with all their productivity. In the end, a market economy is a compromise with the imperfections of our nature. I hope you'll be virtuous, but even if you're a greedy bastard, I didn't know that was in the Christian Post, at least I can incentivize you to produce something useful. The utopian vision of the revolutionaries, on the other hand, brooks no impurity. All must be cleansed. While frustrations with one's managers may be quite frustrating for millionaire sports stars and billionaire rappers, I don't think we should display any social tolerance for Ye's kind of talk. Amen. Or for Kyrie's promotion of these hateful ideas. Amen. And that's different than suppressing free speech. Social tolerance is different here. Right? To do so is not showing love or deference to the Black American experience. After all, that experience was in many ways shaped by a sense of identification with Exodus of the ancient Hebrews. Amen. And by an Orthodox Christianity that loves and admires Judaism and values its people. Amen. We have to know enough about alternative urban spiritualities to speak intelligently to their false claims about the true nature of Israel, Christ, or the Jewish people. Let us engage Black anti-Semitism just as we engage nationalist anti-Semitism or extreme anti-Zionism with firmness and rational argument. The world must never again allow the lies and hatred that led to the Shoah, no matter who is spewing it. Never again. Rachel Ferguson is the director of the Free Enterprise Center at Concordia University of Chicago, assistant dean of the College of Business and professor of business ethics. She is an affiliate scholar of the Acton Institute and co-author of Black Liberation Through the Marketplace, Hope, Heartbreak, and the Promise of America. Okay, I see we have super chats, and that means I owe you a freestyle. However, the show is at 90 minutes in a few seconds here, okay? And so here's the thing. Here's the thing. I got to do it in the next live stream. Okay? Next live stream, I got a couple topics I'm looking at, mainly finishing up the Revelation 2:9 stuff, and I need to get in a smoke room pretty soon here. Gonna do the freestyles that I owe you guys on those, because we got to get out here, okay? So we never let the debt go unpaid, but we can't do it today, guys. Shout out to the live chat. Shout out to everybody. Much love. How y'all doing? Oh, St. Louis, yeah. Hey, I debated that guy. The table. I debated ISUPK dude. And so you definitely want to check that out. Oh, thanks, Nate. Thanks, Nate. There's the ISUPK playlist. Let me put that as the pinned comment. I keep on forgetting, but honestly, every show I really need to go ahead and I need to make sure I pin at least one comment every show, you know? Oh, it's on my head, isn't it? Oops. Yeah, you guys gotta understand though, it's long here. Let's see here, where did the thing go? Yeah, I see we got some trolls here who just trying to mess. You see, we see what you're doing here. We see what you're doing here, guys. People acting one way just to... Anyways, look, I'm going to do the freestyles, okay? We know I always do them, okay? But we're going to have to do it another time, okay? Because we got to get out of here. I see, I know I owe. Don't worry, I promise I'm going to come through. All right, in the meantime, I love y'all. A lot of stuff's happening. There's more I want to talk about, more I'm going to tell you about. Don't have time right now, but keep it posted. We got a great audience. Important things are happening. We're at the right place at the right time in Jesus' name. And I just hope that we can really realize we're in a unique moment here, you know? We really are. And it's important to see. And we don't want to let it go, you know? I'm going to stick with what this is. Anyways, so shout out to everybody who is here today. And let me close with a verse if I could real quick. I think I want to, let me see here. Just give me a second here. Let me see what I'm going to do here. What's a good one here? Yep, there we go. Can I close with a verse here? Romans 1:16, because we talked about the good news. And let me tell you about the good news here. This is the good news. Romans 1:16 here. Look at what it says about the euangelion, the gospel, the good news. And this is Apostle Paul writing the beginning here, and here's what he says about it. It's beautiful here. You guys ready for this? I am obligated, both to Greeks and non-Greeks. Take that, IUIC. Both to the wise and to the foolish. That is why I am so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. And notice the gospel can't be, you're the true Jews and you're not. Because he just said, I'm obligated to Greeks and non-Greeks. So it's literally showing whatever he's preaching is not that message. Look at this. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, the euangelion, the good news, because it is the power of God that brings salvation, not knowledge of who you are ethnically. It brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile. The gospel literally, when it's defined, is the opposite of one West Hebrew Israelism. They were chanting, we got the good news, and they were lying. Because look what the good news here is. For in the gospel, the euangelion, the good news, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. That's sola fide, and that's also opposite of what these groups teach and proclaim. Do you see? Do you see? Do you see? I hope you see that. I love y'all. God bless. Much love. Peace out. God bless. Shalom. And here's a book to